been a while, hasn't it? Back on the train-based walks. Today is a Calderdale Recce, and as you might have seen behind me there was the St Peter's Cricket Club at the village of Sawbi, or Sowerby, take your pick. And it's a recce because I'm scouting the route of the Calderdale hike, which is an organised challenge event on the 9th of April. And there are 3 routes. There's a 36 mile, 26 mile and a 16 mile, all based on this cricket club. I know the area, but I don't know the exact route. So I thought, as I have 5-6 weeks before the big day, I will get to know the area and get to know how the checkpoints are linked. So today the aim is to connect the first 3 or 4 checkpoints. I shall get around halfway on the 26 miler, and then midweek or next weekend I'll close the loop and scout the rest. A little glimpse of St Peter's Church itself. The village of Sawbi is one of the older inhabited places on these Calderdale balconies. You find that the valley bottoms were marshy, and they were often just crossed via a bridge, so you'll have places like Sowerby Bridge, Hebden Bridge and so on, but there weren't many inhabitants down there. The early settlements were up on these balconies at 800, 1,000 feet, something like that. So we're starting to get a better view now of Calderdale. Let's have a look there. We can see Halifax behind, panning London Foot towards Mytholmroyd. And I would say the first third of this Calderdale hike sort of hugs the contours of Calderdale, dropping into a valley, climbing out again, ultimately making its way towards Lombards, which is another of these shelf villages above Todmorden, which we've been very close to before on one of the Gaddings walks. These challenge events are kind of liberal, really. You can walk them at your own pace, you can run them, anything in between. They have a finishing list, so they are lightly competitive, but they're also a social event. I used to do those kinds of events in the late 80s and early 90s, mixing them with, at the time, traditional fell walking, with climbing, with running, and they were just a good day out. And for the last couple of years, the Calderdale hike has been cancelled due to COVID restrictions and so on, because I think they generally get a field of maybe 300, 350. But this year, all being well, it's on. So I thought I'd get an entry in and turn the clock back a little. Sometimes place names can be a bit of a mystery. You often wonder why a certain village has a certain name, or a road is named in such a way. This is an old Baptist chapel on Steep Lane, and I'm not asking why. approaching what will be the first checkpoint at Nav End near some quarries, and there was a slight overnight frost. I'm guessing the temperature dropped down to maybe 1 or 2 C. The frost has gone. There's a nippy wind. I mean, I'm dressed as a walker today. I've got boots on, walking trousers, this old fibre pile jacket from the distant past. So yeah, I'm quite warm. I've got lots of stuff in that rucksack too. More than I would necessarily carry for the event. But yeah, what a beautiful day after some very, very unpleasant weather. Mythenroyd down in the valley, and a glimpse of Hebden Bridge beyond, and maybe just a peep of Heptonstall Church. This route now drops almost into Mythenroyd and then cuts back on the hills that we can see over there, contouring round to Errington and cutting underneath Studley Pike. So there should be lots of nice balcony type views to come. Quite a tricky little section going through brambles and holly bushes and hawthorn. I couldn't film any of that. It wasn't particularly obvious either, because the high winds and floods have brought down various bushes and brambles, and they've obscured the track, and in one case they've blocked a gateway. Yeah, I missed that. Picked up a few minor cuts for my trouble, but I'm back onto a cobble track by some recent looking conduits, and I'm heading towards Mythenroyd. This has been quite a short, sharp shock really, a steep pull out of Mythenroyd, heading for somewhere called Daisy Bank, and initially it cut up through some woods, track steepened, cobbles and old paving stones. Now I'm sure under there are some stones somewhere, but the causeway has kind of disappeared, but the gradient hasn't. Just panning slightly as I toil away. To my right, you might be able to see the square tower of Heptonstall Church popping up. That being the new church. And Mythenroyd behind. The only way is up. Hello. You get stuck in. At no small distance, never boring. Yeah, I'm learning some important lessons on the route finding. Some of the tracks are quite sneaky in the way that they flip behind the farms or in front of the farms or through a courtyard or detouring. For instance here, the map suggests that I go through this courtyard ahead, so you can see it there. So I should just curve through these farm buildings and continue to hug the side of the valley. No, it's wrong. Nope, I think that's wrong. So another lesson learned. I think that I have to avoid that farm. Very confusing. I know in the past the kind of navigation for these events is really tricky. It's quite different to big mountain navigation because you're just a few meters away from missing a track and going into someone's private garden, which doesn't happen on the big fells. So let's try this. There's a detour. That was the farm. Maybe I was allowed. I'm not sure. But this looks to be okay. Yeah. Okay. One to put in the memory banks there. For April the 9th. I'm on Kilnshaw Road, Kilnshaw Lane, I can never remember. You can see good old Studley Pike up there. The town in the valley that you can see is Todmorden. The Calderdale hike continues on this old Drovers Road all the way to Mankinolls and Lumbots, so it doesn't give in to temptation to climb Studley Pike. Yeah, it's an interesting route so far. I think, well, my GPS said that I've walked 7.75 miles, so I'm guessing that that's about 6.25–6.5 miles of the actual route ticked off so far. Underfoot, it's interesting. I mean, we're coming off a very wet and waterlogged phase with the 3 storms in quick succession delivering all kinds of rain, sleet, snow. So it's a little bit unfair to judge the underfoot conditions now and assume that they'll still be the same at the beginning of April. I think at the beginning of April it'll be an awful lot drier and quite a bit faster underfoot too. The main point today was to get out and have a nice leisurely walk on the first nice weather Saturday for ages, and to get to know the route a little bit better. I do. London Road, this section's called. Quite how you get to London on this track is beyond me. but it certainly goes to Lumberts, and Lumberts is a place where there's an interesting water tower built for the Field and Mills. A glimpse of Lumberts Church. I'm not sure where the checkpoint will be, but this is Lumberts Methodist Graveyard. So I'm guessing that the checkpoint will be somewhere around there. You can see a dam just through the trees there. That will be feeding the part of a cascade sequence from Gaddings to that one, and then onto the Lumberts watermill tower. So the route now continues up here, gaining some height, heading to Withens Cross, which sits on a kind of a col between Studley Pike, the Te Deum Stone, and the Pennine Way, going towards the White House and Blackstone Edge. About 8¼ miles into the route so far. Old Pack Horse route to Withens Cross, and ultimately over to Te Deum Stone and Cragvale. These are made from wonderful millstone grit, grippy stones. By over 300-400 years, the pitching has drifted a little bit. So this is roughly, you can see the standing stone there, Withens Cross, looking down to Lumberts Church. The route now veers off up that small hill there. You can see the track, that's the Pennine Way, and it makes its way alongside some reservoir culverts, some reservoirs, and then onto Blackstone Edge on the White House, where there's another checkpoint. So today I've walked about 9 miles of the route, so what I'm going to do is turn in the opposite direction, head to Studley Pike, have some lunch, then I'll toddle back down to Hebden Bridge and catch a train home. Cyclocross guy. Right, Studley Pike. There's a little bit less snow than last time I was here. Good old Studley Pike obelisk. I'll find somewhere out of this wind, get some coffee, bite to eat.
That's where the pub is. Yeah.
And there's a shot I never get tired of, the classic Studley Pike in the rucksack shot. It's quite a chilly wind now. I'm tempted to put my fibre pile back on. It's been an interesting part one recce, giving me an idea of, I thought it'd be that kind of countryside. I think the rougher stuff will be in that second half. There's a section there along some reservoir water culverts that I've never done. I don't really know what to expect there. And then some cheeky route finding around Rushworth and Ripponden that I'll really, even on the map it looks complicated, so it'll be good to get that underfoot. So far there's nothing I'd use walking poles for in terms of descents, but again I can make that decision when I've done the second half. Hello. But it's nice to get out and get some steady miles under boot after all that dreadful array of storms and just generally unpleasant weather. When you realise the limitations, I think, of doing train-based walks in those conditions, because yeah, you take some spare clothes with you, you take decent waterproofs and so on, but still you finish, you get back to a railway platform, you soon go cold at this time of year, and then you either need somewhere to get a complete strip off and change, or you're shivering until the train comes and then you dive in the train toilet, try and get changed in there. You may be facing a 2-hour train ride home, your immune system's taken a knock, and then yeah, you're on a railway carriageway, even open to who knows what. That's why I generally, when it's those kinds of conditions, I tend to stick to home-based circuits. I mean, yeah, if you've got a car, it's completely different because you can take unlimited amount of dry stuff. You get the engine started, you get the heater on, great. But the old the train network, and especially when on occasion a train is an hour late. Oops, sorry mate. Oh, miles away then. So behind me was the old chamber. I've dropped down the steep cobbled road and I'm 5-10 minutes from Hebden Bridge railway station. I think I've got to wait about 35-40 minutes for a train, but it's a nice day, not a big deal. So yeah, I hope you found this reconnaissance walk as interesting as I did, and join me for the next part, hopefully inside the next 7 days. So from this episode, it's bye for now. and see you next time.